This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 743, brought to you by the new Audible original, The Sandman. And iFanboy listeners just like you who are washing their hands, wearing their masks, staying distant, and hanging in there. It's tough out there. Hello, welcome to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 743. My name is Connor Kilpatrick. This is Josh Flanagan.
This is Josh Flanagan.
And we are iFanboy. And every week we read a bunch of comics, and one of us picks their favorite book. We call it the Pick of the Week. We talk about that book, other books from the week. We do Patron Picks and Powers and listener mail if we have time. We have a good time in the midst of all this not good time. This is not a good time.
It's in almost no respects.
Yeah, so
Satire's doing okay right now. That's about it. That's like, you're like, man, the music and comedy has been great during this time. That means things are not going well.
yeah, I'd be fine with really bad comedy.
Good creativity is a bellwether of the end times.
Here's your spoiler warning. It's a review show. There'll be spoilers. Exercise your caution. Josh, you had to pick this week, and you had a good week for it. I was jealous because there was a lot of good things to choose from.
It was a pretty fun week of comics and little diversions and surprises that sort of broke things up. The pick this week is Injustice Year Zero #1, which is sort of one of those smaller digital only books.
Well, it'll be a digital first. It's a digital first book.
Digital first is probably the way. I knew when I started to explain it I was going to get something wrong.
That's all right.
And you're going to be like, here's what it is.
It's on the cover. It's on the cover.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
It's fine. It's all fine.
I think a lot of some people out there will be happy because, for years people have been trying to get us to read Injustice. Tom Taylor's old book that was tied into the Injustice video game, and we didn't read it because we don't like tie-in books, and then we fell in love with him over DCeased, and people were like, well, no, you got to read Injustice. And so now I know you have been reading the collection.
Yeah.
I have it on my iPad. I haven't started it yet, but this was my first Injustice book, and this is the pick of the week, so now everyone can be happy. And
well, I think that, Tom Taylor story, this is his whole other universe that he's created in the DC world. Roger Antonio, on art, colors by Rain Barreto, and letters by Wes Abbott. And I've read enough of Injustice to sort of know where this leads, as this is a Year Zero thing, which I think actually helped a little bit.
Which is funny because I haven't, so I don't know where it leads.
Yeah. Okay. I think it works either way. I think we both get a benefit there that is different. And it's the I'm going to tell you the same thing that I've told you when we read.
Well, hold on, but we should also mention that the first 3 issues of this dropped this week.
Yes.
So issues 1 through 3. The pick of the week is issue 1. That was the best issue. I enjoyed all 3 of them. We can probably talk about all 3 of them at the same time, but
yeah,
in case you're wondering, all 3 came out. Who knows why?
$1 a piece. So it's 3. It's basically.
I don't know why they did it, but they did it.
It's $3 for what would be, I guess, an issue and a half in normal terms.
Yeah, that's about right.
And I didn't know what to expect, but this is not going to be an unfamiliar story of you've got Tom Taylor creating this society, this world that is off to the side of DC proper, but then doing all of the things with the characters that are what we just want to see the characters do. Without any of the constraints of an overall editorial theme or continuity or all of that stuff. He gets to take the best of the characters and the best versions of those characters and do a thing with them. And this doesn't even have, like in DCeased, you're like in, unfortunately, the midst of a zombie story. Because that really is true. Like, I wish that didn't have to be the thing, but I will take what I can get in that. Like, this restaurant's amazing. It's located in a garbage dump. Right. And it's not quite that. I'm being extreme. But so what we have here is Superman comes down to talk to Batman, who's in the middle of some shit with Nightwing and Damian, which is delightful to see Nightwing hanging out with him there, by the way. Oh, and Huntress. We don't need your help. He does it anyway. He's like, all right, I want you to come with me. He's like, I know, I don't want to go. And you don't know what it is. And it turns out that there's a party up at the Watchtower. Mm-hmm. And you see the exterior of the Watchtower. This is really one of the instances where the page turn in the digital format, the half-page thing, worked really well. Because you see the Watchtower floating up there, and the only word balloon is "say cheese," and you flip it, and you see the Justice Society all standing there in their fabulous Golden Age cloth costumes.
Right.
With a big handmade sign behind them.
That was my favorite part.
And
who do you think made that sign?
It's a good question.
I'm guessing it was Superman or the Flash.
I think it would be it's really funny to think of Cyborg doing it.
Just painting it.
Yeah, with having this is hard, but why don't we just print this? No, you have to do it this way. He does have a glass of champagne, by the way. And, classic Mr. Terrific with his, all the silly / wonderful costumes of that time.
This is not the rebooted Justice Society from Jeff Johns' run. This is, for the most part, there's a couple. There's
whoever Amazing Man, that he looks out of place there. But the rest of it, I looked at it and I went, is this a photo in the Justice Society? Like up in the Watchtower, did they just have that there? And I was like, oh my God, no, they're having a party for and with these characters. And, it was kind of sweet. And everybody got to be, and then you get to page 17 on your digital reader, and Ted Grant, Wildcat, is talking to Batman, and there are about 6 pages that are maybe the most fun pages I have read in a very long time. And they're really I got to that, and I was like, well, I had not planned to make this the pick of the week, but there's a large, and I read this, I think this might have been the first thing I read.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and basically he's like, what, you're not having fun? He's still working on Batman. It's really, there's a really fine line with Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And you can play the line a little silly and funny and sort of make fun of the over-serious nature of him, but it's really easy to make it dumb. And, man, Tom Taylor is kind of an expert at riding that line. Where the line that he says is, it's a work night and my hydration levels are at their optimum, Wildcat. This is why he won't drink. And it's just such a lame, stiff thing. And if everything else after that wasn't great, it would not work. But it did. And he's like, so do you want to drink or do you want to fight? If you don't want to drink, do you want to fight? And he's like, I'm not going to fight you. I get it. You're scared. I'll make you look bad in front of your work friends. Every syllable in that is fantastic. And then they have a fun fight for fun. Where they're beating the shit out of each other. There's blood. And I love that the choice, and it has to be the choice, but it is still antithetical. The choice is that Ted Grant wins.
Oh, no, I think that's the right choice.
No, it totally is, but it still flies in the face of most of what we see in Batman. There's going to be this one thing, and the guy has no powers, and he's old, and he's a better boxer than you. And it really is it's a jerk off to the greatest generation, but I love it, and I'll take it. Now, around that are the great things like, I guess it's Barry, Alan?
Yeah, it's Barry, yeah.
Barry Flash. He goes and he gets Jay, and he's like, what? Bring popcorn, come quick. And then the next page is them watching wild-eyed as Ted Grant... Listen to Connor laugh. This is pure DC Comics joy.
It's great. It's great. It was a great scene.
Yeah, I mean, that alone is enough. I know you were watching us. How? I smelled the popcorn. And I'm not explaining what happened, but if you read it, it's a lot of good stuff. Now, after that...
There's coloring error in that page, by the way.
Is there?
21, they colored Jay's pants red in the second panel when Batman's falling.
Yes, they did. Looks like Shazam there, doesn't he?
He does look like Shazam. I was like, wait, Shazam's here? Oh, no, they just messed that up.
Rain Barretto's no slouch, so happens. What are you going to do?
Happens.
And then, then the Joker shows up and the story sort of takes off with where it's going to go.
I have a vague idea of Injustice, just from the cultural osmosis. I believe it ends up being hero versus hero, which is your least favorite story. And it alludes to that in the beginning where it says basically over Batman's narration. I think it could have been different if they were still here, and it shows the Justice Society. So this particular miniseries, whatever you want to call this, I mean, they've been teasing it as a Justice Society story. They're on the cover of it. That, and then it shows them at one point, like a flash forward, bloodied and probably dead. So at some point, and again, I don't know the Injustice story, that perhaps the death of the Justice Society is what precipitates the split. Again, I haven't read the book.
I'm not telling you, so
that's
you can go ahead and and from there, so that's the end of the first issue. Basically, there's a old man in Arkham, and he wants out, so he tells somebody that he knows he can bestow the powers of a god, and then the Joker shows up and breaks him out. That's the end of that first issue.
Mm-hmm.
From there, I didn't love it as much from then on. It wasn't bad, but I was like, okay, it's another Joker story. It's a very well written Joker and Harley, I thought.
Wasn't Joker one of the inciting incidents in Injustice?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what I figured.
Yes.
Well, I mean, issue 2 opens with another great sequence with the Justice Society, in which they're still hanging out. The party's still happening on the Watchtower. So that's still like an extension of issue 1, where Superman's acting all bashful, and the
you're right.
Society's like, yeah, but you're like way more influential than we are. Like there's a great sequence where even Batman's like, he doesn't understand how.
Yeah, you're right, and that was really nice too, because there's a this is the same thing we're talking about Batman. There's a tendency to make him oblivious to normal things and personal things, and that's ridiculous, because it's impossible to be that intelligent and have that's not true. But I like that because he's a dad, because he has people around. He's not emotionally unintelligent, so I think that was really nice. And then you get to sort of get the reverse. The joke becomes Superman. I love that when Alan Scott walked in, he's like, "World's finest." Look at these guys.
Yeah, and then issue 3 is like, I don't think the heroes are in it at all. Oh, Hawkman and Hawkgirl are in it, but for the most part, it's like delving.
But that's like a flashback.
Yeah, is it? I guess it is. It was.
Yeah.
It was delving into
1942. By the way, what is Carter Hall off digging in pyramids in the middle of World War II?
It's the best time. There's chaos.
I guess.
Oh, you're right. It was a flashback. So this is about, I guess, whatever the god power is, the origin. That was my least favorite issue, but I still enjoyed it. So overall, I really like these 3. I liked the Roger Antonio art a lot.
Yeah, it was really pretty strong.
Hard edges and sort of rough. It worked really well for the story. The
it's
characters
like
all look
it's kind
great.
of an updated Howard Porter without as much.
That makes sense.
Without as much sort of exaggeration in form.
Yeah, I liked
little
these 3.
Little Tony Harris in there too, actually.
I mean, I don't know how long this goes for. It's bizarre they put out all 3 at once. I don't know if it's a 4-issue thing. I don't know if it's who the hell knows with these digital first books. But I'm really enjoying it, and now we have 2 Tom Taylor digital first books that are really good. So
yeah, I mean,
don't know why they're doing it that way. But
you can see what his strength is in the same way, and it is one of those things. It's a little like Doc Shaner. Like, why do you keep putting this guy on side things? Let this guy draw.
He must like it, because he's also doing a project for Marvel that's out of continuity.
Well, I mean, if I'm the creator, if I'm a writer, I can absolutely see the benefit of that. Like, I don't want to deal with any of this stuff. I literally just want to tell my story with the characters in any way, and I don't want to have to say, meanwhile, the plant people are attacking the whole planet.
The fucking plant people. They announced it. I think they had a preview of it this week in a Free Comic Book Day book that I read. That he's doing a big out of continuity Marvel story, which Marvel does not do very often.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
So that's that must be his deal, which is great, because he uses it to tell great stories.
I mean,
I was not you were not wrong this week.
Yeah, I mean, really, that was a moment. I never beat that. I don't even think necessarily like it was a great issue. It was one of those things like you could do. It was a fun issue, and issue even sounds weird saying it, but sometimes a moment can be like, I can't beat that moment. Nothing in its entirety beats the joy of that moment,
right.
And sort of just the understanding, because I think it sounds very. I feel sometimes like we're being overly nostalgic about things when we're like, this was a great Batman and Superman moment. But really, those characters are why we showed up at this party at a certain point. And when somebody manages to focus in and distill out what's great about those characters, it's still a really special thing.
And also, I think it's not unfair to say we think that, DC particularly has kind of lost its way a bit. And so there's one corner of this company that's doing it the right way, as I'll put it. And the way that being the way I like it. So it's not necessarily nostalgia. It's that it's that whole Jeff Johns thing about Rebirth, around Rebirth, which was we've lost the way with these characters. Let's go back to that, and then for whatever reason that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So
it makes me think of, and this is going to be a niche reference, probably just for Connor, and it's just going to say it, and then I'll you got the master of horror sitting right here, and he's saying this sucks. And now I'm going to explain that, because I don't. So in Project Greenlight season 3, I think they were doing a horror movie, and you've got a room with a bunch of executives and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and Wes Craven is there, and they're trying to work out this script, and Wes Craven basically says, "This isn't good." And Matt Damon gets really angry at one of the people who's like, "Oh, we could do it like this." And he goes, "You've got the master of horror right here, and he's saying it sucks." And it's just such a beautiful distilling moment, and that's what it feels like at DC Comics a little bit. Like you've got Jeff Johns right there.
Yep.
And so you've got the Toms. You've got the Tom Taylor. You've got, and I think I think Tom Taylor would, given the freedom, be really good on the sort of mainstream books.
Yep.
Tom King, I like it that he's doing what he's doing. I think
Tom King needs to be doing these things. I want to talk about his book in a second. But
yes.
The second Tom Taylor book out this week, DCeased, Dead Planet number 2 of 7. This is the second big DCeased miniseries. And what I liked about this one, other than the normal DCeased stuff, was that it sort of brought a bunch of the series together. So you had the characters from Unkillables show up. You know, the Ravager and Red Hood and the
It's
kids.
funny because I saw Red Hood and I thought, isn't he dead? No, they didn't die. Okay, right.
And Mary Marvel and Gordon's in the background. So all those characters who survived and went to Ivy's garden, meet the main story here. And then, that good DCeased stuff where, they went back to Earth to find Cyborg, and Cyborg tells them there's a cure, so they're not immediately bailing out. They're trying to figure out what that means, and that leads to tragedy for one group of the magic team.
Shadow Pact,
which is an old DC thing. As they go to...
So that's a real good indicator of what we were just talking about, is that Tom Taylor didn't call them the Justice League Dark.
Right.
He said, no, this is Shadow Pact, and that was much better. And even though he had John Constantine up in the front like he was Captain America, I'll allow it.
So then they go to investigate a second bunker in Australia, which is Tom Taylor's native land, and run into a horrible situation with Plastic Man. I mean, it was...
That was one of those, oh, nice comic book work there. Like a totally unexpected thing that made perfect sense.
Yeah.
And scary, because it's one of those things where, I don't think I'd want to ruin this for everybody, but Plastic Man is one of those characters who's always very silly, but the sort of the rumor, the idea is that no, he's one of the most powerful characters.
Yeah.
And if that goes wrong, then you see what this is, and it's bad. Which was
and
good.
it was, and again, in a DCeased fashion, it allows for small character moments. The stuff between Cassie and Damien, as Cassie is really upset about what's been going on, and you find out they're in love, or at least they're discovering that now. I don't know if it's an ongoing thing or not. And then you've got Jason and Damien getting to reunite, and Jonathan's hurt. There's a lot of quiet, good stuff here, and then also you have Severed Head Cyborg, which is just weird and creepy, talking to everybody because he doesn't have a body anymore. It was another really good issue.
Yeah.
And a great Swamp Thing appearance as well.
Yeah. What's funny about that Shadow Pact group? Yeah. Those were the guys who were there. Those were the folks who were all there for John Constantine's 40th birthday in the Garth Ennis run.
Oh, interesting.
When they grew weed out of the Swamp Thing, and everybody got loaded.
It's just good. Tom Taylor's good, and I know everyone's sick of us talking about it, but sorry, it's going to keep going because right now he's on a roll.
And that's true. Like if the highlight reel is like somebody's on a home run streak, you're going to talk about that guy at the top of the show, and there's a lot of other good things going on, but there's a lot of really bad things going on. So we're going to flog the things that we're enjoying.
A year and a half ago was Bendis, and now it's Tom Taylor, and. Mm-hmm. That's this comics. Now this week we had Strange Adventures number 4, Tom King, the other Tom, Mitch Gerrard's, Evan Doc Shaner, Clayton Cowles, and I thought this was really good. And I have a lot of suppositions from reading this book. And what's great about it is we're still really early. Not early. We're still only a third of the way through. I was doing math in my head. I was doing 6 a.m. math in my head for a second. Third of the way through, and so we're really only Act 1. Here. So we're starting to learn some things. Our idea that maybe Adam Strange's story is not what it seems is bearing more fruit. And something happened here that was very interesting, but I want to know what you thought about this before I get into that.
Were you going to tell me what it is?
Yeah, I was just want to know overall what you thought of this issue before.
I think it's very interesting because if the idea is I want to tell an Adam Strange story, and is a character I've always loved, and you think of him like a hero. He's going pretty deep. When I say he, I mean the writer is going pretty deep in the idea that he's maybe not all of that. And there's a twist coming. There's supposed to be a surprise, but right now they're getting to the point where, Adam Strange is, if he's not trying to hide something, his wife is.
Yeah.
And certainly
he's either in on it or he's unwittingly a part of whatever this.
Or Zardoz. Like, there's a lot of defensiveness across all the characters taking different forms. And it makes you not want to trust him at the same time that you really want to. I'm waiting for the great. I think that the thing that keeps happening with this and with Mr. Miracle is that you are waiting for sort of the great in the vision. You want the great story about these characters, and this isn't that. It's a great story about the character, but it's not like the hero moment. It's more realistic. And what I mean by that, so by the end, I'm like, oh man, I don't want to find out this guy's a shithead, but he's getting pissed at everybody. He, like when he goes to talk to Green Lantern, which is totally the bar from New Frontier, by the way.
Yeah, it's Highball on the plane, and then Tom King is the bartender. And Mitch Gerrits is in the background, and I assume the third guy is Doc Shander.
I'll look at it in a minute while I'm doing that. So, he's an asshole to Green Lantern, and all of the heroes are, they are keeping their distance. They're all doing. Yeah, that is Doc. They're doing what they're supposed to. Like we have to stay out of this thing, and Hal's like, listen, I can't, it's the whole, and it all makes sense. And Adam Strange is basically trying to get them to go against what they're supposed to be doing. And he's manipulating them, and he's angry about it. And, they're like, you're Superman, you have to help, and he's like, I can't do this.
See, I don't know. I'm starting to question whether or not he's manipulating them or he's feeling desperate because this is a situation out of his control, because maybe he doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Because he's only on Ran, however you say it, part of the time. He's only there when the beam zaps him there, and when he's not there, who knows what's going on, and who knows what they're doing.
Manipulate's probably not the right word, but he's like, you're right. He is getting desperate. That's absolutely what's happening. But either way, he's not thinking. He doesn't seem to be thinking rationally about the other people's perspectives. Right. And then his wife seems super arch.
Yeah, she seems more aware of what's going on. So as we talked about, Adam Strange has written this book about being a war hero on Ran, defeating the Picts, saving the day, and there is some question about whether or not that's accurate, and Mr. Terrific has been enlisted by the Justice League to investigate. And so really, Mr. Terrific's kind of the lead of the book as he investigates the story, and he's great in this book.
I mean, then the other thing that's happening is what you're getting is a reconstruction of Ran as an idea. So, the idea before, the Silver Age version is he goes there. The people of Ran are a technical, idealized society, and they're fighting the savages. Now, that's how things would have looked and read very nicely in the 60s. When you do it now, you go, ooh, who's the bad guy here? And that's sort of what's happening is that, Zardoz has this really nice speech. Am I getting that name right? Or is
sure.
No, I think Zardoz is like a Sean Connery thing.
Maybe.
Doesn't matter. When he's, he's wearing like the little short pants and stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Somebody listening right now is going out of their fucking mind. Anyway, I'm calling him Zardoz. Deal with it. At the beginning, he's like, listen, I know you didn't ask for my opinion, but he's a good guy. I think he's the finest man I've ever met, referring to Adam Strange. You have full access to our stuff, not the Pict stuff. We can't translate that. And there's a big turnaround moment for that with Mr. Terrific, and then he is arrested and confronted. And it's really hard not to love the absolutely competent man that is Mr. Terrific. Sardath. Yeah, you can see how I would confuse that. Yeah, search Zardoz. It's a hilarious costume that Sean Connery wore once as that character. I have no idea what it's from. Anyway, then he slaps Mr. Terrific. And Mr. Terrific is like, what did the five fingers say to the hand? And then he hits him back. And, he's like, you hit me, I hit you. What do you want? Eye for an eye. That's, what are you going to do? What do you think fair play means? Like, that was, as a sequence, and it's saying a lot of things. It's no coincidence that a character is black and a character is white, and there's a power imbalance and all that stuff that's going on in the subtext, and that makes it really interesting. However, I will finish. This is why this was not my pick of the week. I got super confused in what the fuck was happening in the last couple of pages.
All right, let's take a look. First of all, there's a unsettlingly sexy version of Adam Strange's costume being used by some singer on Ron, and that was bizarre and strange.
Makes it. He's a pop hero.
So, let me tell you what I noticed this issue.
Okay.
So up to this point, we've had two artists. One, Mitch Garrett's drawing the the present, the quote-unquote real world. And you've had Doc Shaner drawing the flashbacks, as Josh said, the Silver Agey flashbacks. Here, this is what I noticed. Up until this point, in the flashbacks, Adam Strange has been wearing the classic Silver Age costume. Mm-hmm. The great Adam Strange Silver Age costume. And then it's all of a sudden in this issue, he's wearing, in the flashbacks, the New 52 Abomination. Now, at one point, this is page 27 on your digital reader, Adam Strange and his wife are talking. She's wearing her sort of backpack hero outfit, and she's holding his backpack, and he's got a jacket on over his costume, and you can clearly see that it's the New 52 version underneath it.
Okay.
And then
I see it. I do.
You flip to page 28. He's still wearing that same costume. He's holding the backpack, and then you turn to page 29, and they're flying together, and he's back to wearing the Silver Age version.
Okay.
And so that's not a mistake. These guys are too good for that. It'd be very hard to make that mistake. So my theory right now, and this is only theory because we're only 4 issues in, is that there's almost 3 levels here. There's the real world with Mitch Garrett's. There is the propaganda, which is the Silver Age version, and then there's the real flashback, which is him wearing the New 52 outfit. Like, whatever really happened was him wearing the new outfit. The propaganda in the book, the memory that he has of himself as a hero is in the Silver Age costume. That's my theory at the moment.
So I think you're onto something. And I had not I remarked the costume, but I don't think that I had noticed that when we switched the page he was in the other one. What I was following was the fact that after he fails to get Superman to take him where he wants to go,
to Ron.
Yeah. He then sort of lays down in a field. So theoretically, he waited that week for the Zeta Beam to show up.
Yeah.
He has his hand bandaged.
Because he punched Superman.
Right. Then around him, there's all the dead Picts. That can't be really there.
Yeah, probably.
Okay,
not.
so he's on Earth. And there's alien crows.
Oh no, that's him waking up on Ron. Because if you look,
you're right. You're right.
He's counting down 4, 3, 2, 1 to the beam.
Okay, you're right. That was a really nice sequence. We go back to what it is. So then Alana shows up there. Now, you can't see his bandaged hand on any of the pages on 27. Because I was looking for it. I was like, okay, so that was the marker. He's got the jacket on. No bandaged hand. You can't see it in the next page. They keep his right hand out of frame.
Oh, interesting.
Then we cut to them flying. He's in the old costume, but he does have the bandage on his hand. So theoretically, that would lead me to believe. I just think that I have undone my criticism of it because I think that it's a mystery, not a mistake, which is par for the course. That hand is bandaged, indicating that he has punched Superman. Also, he can probably get a better bandage than that. That looks terrible. And then we cut to Alana, who is in Mr. Terrific's house after he has returned from Ron. Mm-hmm. So she's existing in 2 places at the same time at once, theoretically.
No, I think that's still the...
I mean, it's what it appears. This is intentionally misleading, confusing. Like
we're jumping around in time.
We're starting the mystery. Yes, it's temporally unstable. And that at the end, it left me unsettled, and I didn't really know what to make of it. And so, it's not pick of the week for that, but that doesn't mean it's bad.
I mean, this is very good stuff, and I think much like his previous works, we're not going to have a full grasp. We didn't have a full grasp of Mr. Miracle until issue 12 of 12. So, and it all came together. I'm really enjoying this. This is still terrific.
What we just did may have been more fun than reading the issue.
My current theory, and again, we're only in Act 1, is that he is a pawn of the Ronians, he being Adam Strange, and this is Tom King's exploration of colonialism and what he went through in Iraq in that sense. Mm-hmm. But that's just my theory right now in issue 4. It could be different in issue 8 and different in issue 10. So
you know what's really sad is that I don't want Alana to be bad. I don't want to break Adam Strange's heart.
Right.
But then there's the question of the daughter. There's all this stuff. I mean, it's a wild ride, and I don't think that we were focusing very much on it, but it should go without saying that the two gentlemen doing art in this are, I mean, it's
impeccable.
Like, it's career stuff, and I know that like Eisner's were already won, but I don't see in mainstream stuff. I don't see anything that's more beautiful than this right now.
I agree.
And not just beautiful. Beautiful is only a part of it. Like, it's some fucking intricate, real storytelling. Like, it's next level, kind of sophisticated stuff. Just that bit where like, well, I can't say, and I know, I was like, I can't see his hand. Why aren't you showing me his hands? And to sort of understand like that's intentional. That's great.
Well, we used to talk about Morrison quietly doing work that was on a deeper level than most comics, just out of necessity.
Sure.
Most comics can't be that deep, and this is kind of what you've got here. Is you've got a level of consideration that you just don't have time for in other comics. So it's fun to read.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange, Surgeon Supreme, number 6, the final issue. As it ends, I feel like prematurely.
It definitely feels prematurely. Like they had just sort of set up this world of the Surgeon Supreme version, and you introduce this new cast, which includes Dr. Druid, sometimes hero, sometimes villain, as his nemesis foil partner, all at the same time in the hospital. And they go and they discover that Madame Mask is, at the end of last issue, she's running an illegal weapons operation of magical weapons. And in this issue, we find that she's really just like lovesick over Tony Stark, and it's driving her insane.
Just trying to get his attention. So Marvel took the axe to a bunch of books in the last couple of weeks, which is not surprising considering the state of the world. They this week also saw the final issue of Black Cat, which made it 12 issues, and there was another book that they canceled, I think, last week. They've been canceling a lot of these mid-tier books, and what is this, the fourth try at Doctor Strange we've had in the last couple of years?
I mean, to be fair, I don't think it's a try. I think it's been a pretty consistent line that they just keep renumbering. If this was 10 years ago, we would be on issue 40, 50 something, and you'd be like, that's not a bad run.
Right.
So the numbers are they're sort of fooling us in that way. I mean, in this way, I think this is the longest that we've really had a continuous stream of Doctor Strange for a long time, and most of it was pretty good. Jason Aaron into Donny Cates into Mark Waid, and most time I've sort of spent with the character, and I think they all did something really. I think they straddle the line really well. I think Wade has an essay in the end, but it was justified. It was the end, and it was also a premature end. And he's like, the secret to I can't remember actually what he said, but the secret to writing Doctor Strange is to recognize his arrogance, but also not ride that line too far. He puts it better, but basically that's the idea. And also have him be able to recognize it and act accordingly. And
keep him balanced on the fine line between pretentious and likable, while occasionally allowing him to fall victim to his own smugness.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what I said. He said it better. He's a better writer than I am. And it's been pretty good. I've really enjoyed Doctor Strange through this time. And, it's really easy now for people to sort of make him the same as Tony Stark, and I don't think that was happening. It seems like a goofy idea to make him be a surgeon again and have him to try to do that, but whatever. That goes along with Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Also, Wade makes pains to mention it, that he's had a great group of artists, and we've had a great group of artists on this stuff. From Chris Bachalo.
Kev Walker was great.
Kev Walker is one of those guys, like, if I see his name on a book, I don't care what it is, I'm going to read that book. I love Kev Walker's work in comics. And it's kind of a bummer, but also I'm cool with it. That was a good run. It ended soon. At a certain point, we've definitely talked about the fact, like, why is this still going? Like, this doesn't make sense. And now it didn't make sense. So now it isn't going. And
this issue particularly was like a fine. Like, it felt very much like they had a quick wrap up, or even just a wrap up the storyline, which doesn't really feel like the end. So it just, I finished it. I was like, yeah, that was probably my least favorite issue of the 6 that we've had so far. But
yeah.
Overall, I really liked this.
But I mean,
6 issues. I'm glad you talked about it enough to get me to read it.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy the character work in it enough. I really liked whatever was going on with Stephen Strange and Dr. Druid.
That was a fun rivalry.
Yeah, it was good, and it's fun. Like the story overall line was fine, but like the characters are good, and that Kev Walker art is, he's great. I've loved everything I've seen him on since that Thunderbolt stuff he did a long time ago. He's a British artist. He probably did a lot of other stuff before that, like in 2000 AD, and I don't know anything about it, but
I just did the ceremonial removal from my iPad of the series.
Oh, look at you.
It's sad. I have little taps playing in my head.
Trumpets.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was good, but this was a bummer.
And now, a word from our sponsor, and I'm just saying, watch your ears. We're doing our best.
The year was 1916. Roderick Burgess conceived a plan. He would capture death.
You are Death.
It's him! He's back!
The Sandman's a fairy story. He's back, John. Dream of the endless.
Greetings to you, Lucifer Morningstar.
Hello, Dream.
I have shown him fear in a handful of dust.
The Sandman. Only from Audible. In association with DC. Just close your eyes and listen.
Wilhelm scream right at the end.
Good stuff.
Or close to it. So this is for the original Audible series, The Sandman. It's based on the best-selling DC graphic novels, Vertigo, written by Neil Gaiman with a murderous row of artists here. So you'll have to use your mind to imagine what all that stuff looks like. But that should be pretty easy because it's a heck of a soundscape. It was adapted and directed by Dirk Maggs, hailed by the Los Angeles Times Magazine as the greatest epic in the history of comic books. This audio adaptation is decades in the making. Stars James McAvoy in the title role. I'm sure you heard his voice. You follow Morpheus, the Dream Lord, whose name, when said out loud, sounds like Jean, but it is Dream. And as he's pulled from the dream realm and imprisoned on Earth. And when he finally escapes, he must restore his power to rebuild his dominion. And that is just the start. And it's funny because just saying those words, I can picture Dream stuck in that box in that first arc. As he wakes up and he's like, what the hell is going on here? And it all goes from there. There's a powerhouse ensemble cast, and I would not let them say that without remarking on it if it were not true. But there's Riz Ahmed, there's Kat Dennings, there's Michael Sheen. You could say Michael Sheen, that would be enough for me. And even more, along with the aforementioned James McAvoy. In your wildest dream, you've never heard anything like this. Listen now only on Audible. It is an Audible original. Go to audible.com/Sandman to check that out. I am a rabid Audible fan, so you cannot go wrong there in any way.
Let's move on to the Goddamned, The Virgin Brides #2, and I just can't get into this book. I don't know why. It's bumming me out because this is the creative team behind Scalped, Jason Aaron, R.M. Guerra, two of our favorites, and I loved the first Goddamned volume. I talked about this in the first issue, and I was hoping with the second issue I would be more into it, and actually I was less into it.
I was more into it. I think it was a little better idea about where we are in this sort of mixing of myth and fable or religion, however you want to say it, and sort of modern sensibilities and like, this is bullshit, let's get out of here. And threat, like real threat, like biblical threat, like, oh, everybody's a crazed monster and they'll cut you up because there's no sense of society or decorum around here. I think that kind of works together. It's one thing to I like this, and I think a lot of that is carried on the momentum of me really wanting to like it, and based on the work that those people have done before. I'm not in love, but I'm still intrigued enough, and I think I enjoy it enough to see what it is. But it's a big difference between what the two of those guys did in Scalped when they're in a real world on a res, and this sort of. It's not actually in a fantasy world, I don't think, too much. It's just like it's almost a barbarian story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hanging on. I'm okay.
I mean, it looks great. Nothing else looks like it in the comics, but I just don't know. I'm still gonna read it because I love these guys so much. But I'm hoping to get my emotional teeth into it, but I just haven't been able to, which is a bummer. That's my problem, not yours. Captain America 21.
You're not reading these, right?
I am.
Oh, okay.
It's Captain America.
I wasn't sure if you dropped off.
I can't not. It's Captain America. It's my favorite Marvel character. Ta-Nehisi Coates. Bob Quinn, all we know as Bob Q, when he does better work over at Dynamite. Matt Milla on colors. Joe Caramagna. I don't. It's not bad, and this particular issue actually was better than it's been, but
yeah,
I just don't know what Ta-Nehisi Coates is trying to tell. What story he's trying to tell here?
So I I dropped off for a little bit, and I
It
decided.
also feels old.
Yeah.
And what I mean is by that, it feels like this was Marvel 6 months ago. And I realized this book comes out monthly and everything else comes out every other week or weekly. And so that world is allowed to move forward much quicker. And it feels like this is a Marvel universe from earlier in the year, and it doesn't really fit. That's one of my complaints about it.
I don't know if that's a complaint. I don't know that that's not a strength. But
I just hate Cap, who's enemy of the people. I just don't like it.
Well, so I just finished reading Between the World and Me.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever else about it, and there's a lot of things you could talk about it endlessly. It's a National Book Award winner, blah blah blah. But it's beautifully written. Like I was like, holy cow! Like I get it. This guy can write. And so I wanted to revisit this series with that in mind, and also with his very clear worldview in mind, which is a pretty big departure from what a lot of Americans think, and also how that fits into Captain America. And I find that really interesting. So I wanted to re-examine it with those eyes. Then at the same time, I know that Coates is an old school Marvel fan.
Yep.
70s, 80s Marvel comics. And I think it's really interesting how those things meld. That doesn't mean good, but it is really interesting. And I haven't solved that equation. I haven't looked, but I thought this issue was. I was like, oh, I don't know what this story is, but it's kind of an interesting thing, and it felt
This
like
was
an
one
80s,
of the better ones.
Felt
in
like
a
an
while.
80s Cap story.
Yeah,
Springfield.
Red Skull's coming back. He's we know he's been in the background, inside this character for a while, but now he's finally sort of asserting himself, and that was exciting and fun. And I don't know why Bob Q's art is so good on Red Sonja and not so good here, except for that one issue he drew. I don't know if it's the inking. I don't know if it's the coloring. I don't know.
Yeah, you're not
I don't know
wrong.
if he's doing this at nighttime while he's doing Red Sonja during the day. Like I don't know. It's kind of a head shaker.
There's no indications from the creator list of why that would be. You know what I mean? Like there's not like who's that guy? These are all pros. This is that said, it was a fun little issue. It was really like reading like a late 80s Captain America comic was what it felt like to me. So that was kind of cool. So I'm gonna read it again. I'll see what it is. It makes me think a lot more than most of the comic books do, knowing sort of where the source where it's coming from, for sure.
Did you drop off Empyre yet?
I didn't. I'm reading it. The main
Issue
story.
4. Yeah, Al Ewing, Dan Slott, Valerio Schiti. I think what I've decided with Empyre is that the problem with it is, and we were excited for it. We loved the Prelude issues, and I think I liked the first issue. The problem with this book, I think, is A, nothing is happening in the main book because B, too much is happening in the side books. So you should be getting the main thrust. You should be able to only read the main of any event. You should be able to only read the main book and get an exciting, fun, event-sized, summer blockbuster story. And I think you're not getting that. What you're getting is a lot of people standing around talking because it seems like they keep telling you this exciting thing happened over in Empyre Captain America or Empyre X-Men or, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just, if reading this book, you're just like, well, nothing is happening in this story. And we're already this book's coming out weekly for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. We're 4 issues in out of 6 or 8.
Yeah.
I think it's 6. And nothing has happened.
I think. Yes.
It's 6. We have 2 issues left.
No,
We're 2/3 of the way through the story, and what has happened? They're still talking about fighting the Kree and the Skrulls.
Okay, so it was the very end of this last one where I at least started to get a glimpse of what this book was or should be, and it seems like it's the Hulkling story. Mm-hmm. How did this guy get to be like this?
And that came out of nowhere.
You know what, though? That was at least something I could grab onto. And you're right. Like all the interesting character stuff, how this affects people, what the stakes are, that is all happening somewhere else. This is all happening on the deck of the ship.
Right.
And, they made Captain Marvel into the Accuser. There was an interesting thing, I think it was last week, where we find out that the other Accuser lady is actually the Skrull. And, so that's kind of, nothing came of that. So I don't know if they went off. Like, they introduce an idea and then they take it and do it somewhere else. But this whole time, I've been thinking, I really liked that Hulkling character, and what the fuck is this? And I get it, Heavy is the head that wears the crown, but it just didn't seem right.
Or he's possessed. That's what the whole implication is.
So then, and then finally, they went down to see Wiccan, and I was like, thank you. And then that guy goes, I don't know who that dude is, but that dude is not my husband. And I really felt like, thank God somebody said it. Like I felt very validated in that. So hopefully that if that is what this story is, which is kind of weak as being the main point. Your none of your points are wrong, but at least it was something to grab onto that was compelling.
Yeah, I mean it's almost over, so I might as well finish it out. But
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm just like nothing is happening.
I'm also
Nothing's happening.
not interested enough to follow all of the other I mean I've read the Fantastic Four one, I read the Captain America one.
Yep.
They weren't great. I'm not interested in the Plant Wars. I've read a lot of Poison
And
Ivy
also,
stories
I
since
just
then.
don't. You know, that was a long time ago. The Kotati,
Mm-hmm.
and if you didn't read those books like I didn't, the internal struggle of Koi
Mm-hmm.
is not interesting because they haven't done anything in this particular book to build him up as a character or
Well, that
reveal his character.
That combined with the fact that the threat, the people like the little, the people that they're all fighting on Earth, it's exactly the same thing as Avengers Infinity War. It's the exact same thing. You can switch those out for whatever the fuck that race was.
It's the same scene from
Yes,
that with on Wakanda.
in every book, or in New York City. It's just it's fine, but it's not bringing anything new to the table.
It's just bizarre.
It's not even bad. It's just it is, you know.
Yeah.
It's mediocrity is its weakness.
So those books we don't want to talk about, but at patreon.com/iFanboy, you can vote to add a book to the rundown. Every patron can do so. And this week, they chose Firepower #1 from Robert Kirk Wooten. Now, backstory, because people are going to say, what? Firepower #1 and 2 came out in physical form, I don't know, a month ago, 2 years ago. I don't know what time means anymore. It came out some time ago, along with a graphic novel prequel book. But they were not available digitally. And I'll tell you what, we've never had so many complaints about not talking about a book on a show as not talking about Firepower. Every avenue for complaint we got. Email, comment on the website, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Everywhere you could possibly complain to us, you complained to us about not covering Firepower. Why? It didn't come out digitally until this week. So, we're talking about it now. And I'm very interested to talk to you about it, Josh, because I read the Prelude book. I got it and read it. Which is a full-on, full-fledged, like 144-page graphic novel from Kirkman and Somni.
Yeah.
That's a prelude to this issue. And so really, I've read like 8 issues of Firepower in the last week. So I'm really curious to see what you thought of it, not having read the prelude, which I felt like was really important to the story. But
Oh, it certainly was. I was very confused about all of this because I don't I deal with what's in front of me on a weekly basis for this show.
Sure.
That's just how it is. It's not,
You read the script in front of you. You read the comics in front of you.
Yeah, like I'm like, okay, it's Wednesday. What's there? Okay, I'll read these things. And so I had heard, I did no checking on this, and I know that you know all of it, but I just figured, I figured like anything, like I'll figure it out. Like it'll be fine. I shouldn't have to work at that. I had thought that this was an OGN project in general. And so I thought, all right, I'll get to it sometime, especially if I hear it's really good. I'll be honest with you, big fan of Kirkman. I can't think of a thing that he's done in a while that has been must-read for me. It's just for whatever reason. And so I was kind of excited about it. I like Somni, but I've also read a lot of Somni stories where, like it's beautiful, but the story's not super compelling. Doesn't make me super excited. So I hear there's an OGN. I think, okay, cool. Move along. We get to this. It's #1, and I thought, oh, okay, I can read it for whatever reason. Now this is an issue form. It's #1. I will read it. There's a little synopsis of what's happened so far in the prelude, and I was like, oh, that must be some free comic book day thing that was 20 pages that explained what's going on. And then I started, and like I got there, and it might have been more in the second issue, but the first issue I was like, what the hell kind of issue #1 is this?
Yeah.
It really was like that. And I'm not putting in any effort. And I recognize that. So I can't really hold that against the creators and stuff. But if I was a casual fan, which I kind of am and am kind of not, this would be very confusing.
Yeah. I really liked this and the prelude a lot. I love Kirkman's break the box thinking. He ends his seminal work without telling anyone. He ships books to stores with no warning. He does a whole graphic novel with Chris Samnee doesn't tell anybody and a series. Like, I like that maverick side of him. But the downside is situations like this where I thought the prelude issue graphic novel was really important to the story. You know, you basically learn the whole backstory of the conflicts, and now there might be people out there who didn't read the graphic novel and read this and loved this. That's entirely possible. I really love this too, but I had read the prelude story, which is basically like a mishmash of a bunch of familiar comic tropes like Iron Fist and Doctor Strange, and there was another one I had in my head. I forgot about it.
Ninja stuff.
Any ninja, young guy shows up at this temple in China in the mountains, and he gets trained. And there's
a kung fu movie, is what
there's a conflict. It's very Iron Fisty. There's a dragon at the temple, and there's the Scorched Earth clan, who is their like nemesis. And the book ends with a giant fight between the Scorched Earth clan and people we've come to know over the course of the graphic novel. It was a great graphic novel. I really liked it. And so here at the end of that, was it the end of that or here? We jump ahead 15 years. It was the end of the graphic novel.
And is the graphic novel available digitally now? Or did you have to get it?
I bought it I bought it physically, so I don't know if it's available digitally or not. But so at the end of that book, we jump ahead 15 years with the main character, who is no longer a young man, living a suburban lifestyle. Or at least we saw that in one page. That's sort of conveyed in one page. And there's a ninja watching his house. And that's how the graphic novel ended. And that's sort of where we pick up here, where I don't remember his name. Not Danny Rand.
Not Mark Grayson.
He's got his wife who's a cop, and he's got 2 kids, and a suburban life, and he sells antique furniture, and they're having a barbecue cookout, and in the midst of that, his old life is returning, where he at the supermarket where he's getting hot dog buns for the cookout, he runs into Ma Guang, who is his rival at the school, who has got hair now. They were all bald in the prelude book, and is telling him that he has to come back to the temple because their leader, who was very much a Kirkman character, ancient looking, who shows up in this book, ancient looking, ninja master who likes Air Jordans and his iPod with classic American music on it and uses American phraseology, has left, and the Scorched Earth clan is a threat, and he has to come back, and now that's intruding on his idyllic suburban happiness. And I really liked this. I thought Samnee's work was great. It's almost like he gets to tell a normal story for a lot of the comic. It's just a story of a family. There's goofy stuff that happens at the cookout. There's funny jokes. There's his daughter being told how to hide a body by his wife's partner, and all kinds of fun family stuff. So it's kind of like he got to tell like a normal comic story for a while before the ninja fighting. And then, of course, I think Samnee's fight choreography is terrific, and so there's a lot of kung fu fighting, and it's great. I thought this was great, but again, I don't know how much that was having read the prelude.
I think that so I figured it out. Like I got at the end of both issues were available, so I read the first 2 issues. Yeah. I figured it out. I knew sort of what was going on. However, I think as a number 1 issue, a thing that says Kirkman Samnee #1, like I was just at a barbecue with a bunch of people I didn't know. And if you're gonna do that format, which is release the trade and then go into this, I don't think.
Now, to be fair, only one person at the barbecue was in the trade. So
I know, but there was no context for anything. So it was like going to a party full of a bunch of people you don't know. Maybe you like that, but that's my idea of hell. So I just didn't know what I was supposed to care about.
Right.
Like, and there wasn't enough there that was super interesting for me to care about. Like, once he goes to the store with his daughter, and then he jumps really far, and then he shows up in front of her. I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting. And if I'm getting into I think I like the second issue a lot more because I knew where it was, because I saw a really cool, there's a silent ninja fight in the house.
Yeah, it was great.
Which is a thing I have never seen in comic books, and I can picture it as a movie.
Yeah, you hear a lot of clothes of ruffling in the wind.
I can picture
tapping.
it.
Yeah.
I've watched enough kung fu movies that that was a really cool exercise. And that is kind of where I am with the whole thing. I do not feel very emotionally attached to it, but it's kind of a really cool exercise. The pitch isn't super exciting to me. the characters feel like Robert Kirkman characters. Like you would run across, this would be another group of people you would run across in Walking Dead, or these are next door neighbors to Invincible. This is the thing. I literally, and I'm not even being flippant, I think the most interesting thing I got out of this, I was like, really, Kirkman is into sneakers. He's one of those guys. I had no idea. And it didn't seem to fit with my image of the man. And I mean, that was the thing that I was like, wow, no kidding. I went back and I looked at the sneakers because I actually did notice that the dad had the Air Jordan 1s on in the beginning.
Well, there was a whole subplot in the graphic novel about the leader who shows up at the end of issue 2 wearing the tattoo of his rival. So that's a big twist.
See, I didn't.
You had no way of knowing that if you had read the graphic novel.
It needed to be clearer that there was a big story before this that would have helped enjoyment and understanding by a great deal.
Anyway, there's a subplot in the graphic novel about him acquiring the Air Jordans.
Right.
So he's wearing them at the end of the second issue.
The 6s.
Yeah, he already
The
has
6s
the
were
5s.
ugly.
As told the guy on the phone, he needs the 6s.
I had the 7 or the 8. One of them.
Anyway, as a whole, as the 8 issues I read this week, I really loved this.
Yeah.
Now, maybe not your cup of tea. Maybe people who didn't read the graphic novel really love the issues too, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
So,
I have a hard time. I mean, we're going to go in, we're going to do ratings, we're going to talk about it, but I have a little bit of a hard time thinking about it in the way that I think I should be to fully appreciate it. So that's a little bit of a challenge for me, I guess.
I understand.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do ratings out of 5.
Ratings.
Ratings on Firepower. We'll do Firepower
1?
I guess number 1, since that was the patron pick. Even though 2 issues came out this week, and we talked a little bit about both. Firepower number 1, I'm going to give it 4 1/4 out of 5.
3 1/4.
Oh, that's not too bad.
No, I mean it's those guys are masters, and as such, then I have higher expectations.
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm checking to see. Yes, oh wait, hold on. Is it?
Oh, actually, it opened the page up to take a look, and then we got talking, so I was paying attention to the show.
No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at to see. You can get the OGN on Comixology if you want. What's happening?
That's fine. Let's do that. Or are we gonna? So I guess I assume you're sticking with it.
Yes, I am. I'm sticking with it. Yes.
All right. I'll read the next one.
All right.
I'll read the next one. I think that'll be fine. Will I read the graphic novel? I don't know. I kind of resent it right now, but
it was good.
Mm-hmm.
It was good, and you don't often get. We've often wondered where the hell has Somni been the last year. That's where he's been. He's been drawing these.
That's true.
Firepower books.
Matt Wilson, by the way, always a delight.
Great. Yeah.
I mean, just like the guy's a beast. Everything he does looks beautiful. So that's your patron pick. If you are a patron and you donate, everybody who's a patron, all of you can vote on the patron pick in a given week. But if you are at the $5 or higher level, you get on the list and you will get your chance to get your special superhero power that Connor and I sometimes prepare ahead of time, sometimes make up on the spot, sometimes, not infrequently, will just be a slight variation of an earlier power, but most of the time will be with whatever crap we're dealing with in our lives.
Listen, we've given out over 700 of these. There's going to be a lot of slight variations. Yes, we have.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, what do you got for Jose De La Torre?
Jose A. De La Torre can summon up Pop Fisher, as played by the late Wilford Brimley, and he will give you sage older man advice on life. He can coach you through the hard times, which is appropriate because he is a baseball coach in the movie The Natural.
Oh, man, I could use that.
He'll talk about farms a lot, I'll be honest. He'll talk about going to work and live on a farm and how there's nothing like a farm, nothing like being around animals, fixing things, nothing like being in the field with the corn and the winter wheat, the greenest stuff you ever saw. There's going to be a lot of that conversation. But, if you need an older shoulder to cry on or to give you advice, he'll be there for you.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Peter Gardner can form tiny little societies in any crevices or drain pipes, like unto a god.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like, like little bottled city of Kandor?
Yeah.
He will find crevices and cracks in your drains, any place, and if he so wishes, he will begin a tiny society that develops there.
Of what kind of creatures?
It depends.
Oh.
It's
wow.
Sentient beings, small. He basically he starts life. He starts a whole race and species of new things that will.
It sounds like a guy who just creates ant colonies.
Pretty much. But they wear capes.
Wow, he's like a... Wow, so they're a humanoid.
I mean, I don't know. I didn't go that far. I think it's one of those things, like at first, yeah, it's in his own image. And then after that, maybe it changes around a little bit.
You've given Peter Gardner a great and terrible power, perhaps the most powerful of all the patrons.
Oh, yeah. Except, remember, this is important. They're very tiny. Do you know where that came from?
Ants?
Yeah, I have ants coming up through my shower drain.
Oh, I just fought off an ant breaking in my kitchen, and I think I've stopped it. I haven't seen it.
You know how I solved it? Put the plug in.
I thought maybe you created another society and they fought the ants off.
No, I just thought it'd be cool. You know why I think it was, now that I think about it? It's because when I plugged it up, I thought, I guess they're going to just have to build from there. And I think that's where it came. I just figured this out now. This was not like direct thought, but that must have been it.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. That's where you can give at the $5 higher level and get your own superpower live on the show. And that's where people go to help support the show. We thank everyone over at Patreon.com/iFanboy. They get all kinds of perks. They get to vote in the Patron Pick. There's the Hangout, which has been open to everybody while we're in lockdown. But we also did a patrons-only viewing party with X-Men Apocalypse. We still try to do patron-only Hangouts with them. But they also get the Discord server, which is very active, and the Facebook group, which is very active. So they have all kinds of fun things they get to do. And help us get our next stretch goal, which is the G.I. Joe Corner Show, which is a weekly or monthly or yearly or every phase of the moon show, which talk about G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. And then after that is the Return of the Barbecue Video Show, which you've been seeing on our YouTube page. So you can head over to patreon.com/iFanboy, help support the show. It's really the best way you could do so. We thank everyone who does that. iFanboy.threadless.com is our t-shirt store, where you can buy all of our designs on various things, not just t-shirts, but also masks and shower curtains and iPhone cases. And of course, our Stay Home and Read Comics design, which is still half of which is going to charity. So it's going to Comic Book United Fund to help comic stores. So if you buy that design at all, half of the proceeds are still going to charity. And we thank everyone who does that. iFanboy.com/support is help us out via PayPal. It's like a tip jar or like a offshore account for any of you eccentric billionaires. And also iFanboy.com/Amazon is where you can find our Booksplode books and a general link. And we thank everyone who does all those things to help keep iFanboy running, keep the lights on, keep us going. And where are we on time, boss?
Let's do the second email, because I like the first one. I want to have time for it, and I think if we think about it later. So Rob from York, England, who have funny northern accents that are different than the funny northern accents slightly next to them, says, I've been listening for around 10 years or so now, and I'll be honest, most of the time I've not been reading comics. Well, I've been reading, but in trades or from libraries. I'm on deep.
In deep.
Comics have got me good, but I've never had the disposable income for weeklies, and I'm getting stuck in it again. And I've been buying up old trades I've always wanted to get around to, and also checking out some ongoings. This is what I do with music, by the way, so I appreciate this. John Constantine is a character I know of, but never really read, save for the Swamp Thing cameos here and there. But my God, John Constantine Hellblazer by Cy Spurrier is my new favorite thing! ! Or Slammer, if you were British. For background, I'm a Brit, and this is the most British thing I've ever read. Honestly, to the point where I wondered with the first arc how much of the slang made sense to a non-Brit. And it's so very far up my street. I want to say such a stupidly big thank you for recommending it. That's great. I always wanted to read Hellblazer back in the day, as I loved some Vertigo. Now this has given me the impetus to go back and read those old stories. As I said, I prefer a trade, so at the risk of you saying just read it all, not going to happen, what are some really good arcs to kick off with? So that's the end of the letter. I just want to say I find that very comforting.
Yeah.
Because it is such a British thing, and I feel
Super
like,
British, yeah.
And I feel like, if you're not reading that in England, then maybe you're not getting the full idea of your representation. And two, I think when you and I were reading that first arc, we were like, "Wow, this is really British,"
and really good.
That's
That's
totally true. But I really like that, like a British person was like, "Shit, it is," and I felt like I feel continental enough to be able to recognize that at least.
But I'm also this is a common question we get about Hellblazer, and I'm always happy to answer it because it's always nice for people to be experiencing and discovering Hellblazer. And I have not read as much as you have nearly.
Yeah.
I've read some, but not as much. You were the Hellblazer guy, but it's always fun to have people discover Hellblazer and
we
read it.
haven't talked about it in a while, so I figured it was okay to go back to this. Okay, so bar none, without a doubt in my mind, the Garth Ennis stuff, which doesn't start with Steve Dillon, but Steve Dillon then shows up. This is the thing that they did immediately before Preacher. They did. I don't. The trades are downstairs. So there's, I want to say 6 or 7 trades.
There's a lot. Because I read all those.
Yeah.
When we were both living in New York, I borrowed them from you. There's like 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah, and you know, anybody who listens to the show probably knows that. Like those are my favorite comics of all time. The Preacher ones. These are just behind that. I don't know that I would say they're my favorite, but they're almost as good. In terms of if you like what those guys can do, and also this was a pre-short. I think I actually mentioned one of those issues earlier for John's 40th birthday. At a certain point, Steve Dillon got to be a little shortcutty in his art. You could say that he simplified it or refined it, but at this point, he was still sort of putting a little more oomph into it, I think, before he sort of settled into his style and accepted it. None of those things are good or bad. It's just interesting. Garth Ennis, he's a kid. He's 22, maybe younger, and he's slaughtering character work left and right. He just understood that character. Now, those are an obvious given. We've talked about that a lot. A lot of other Hellblazer is good. There's not even really bad Hellblazer. I find the Jamie Delano stuff at the beginning, which is a pretty big run. I think it's 40, 50, 60 issues of it or something like that. It's pretty weedy in terms of like the Sandman overbearing, very gloomy, very dark, very, you know, gothy kind of thing, but still really good, you know, if that's your thing. Paul Jenkins did a great run, I think, between those things. I want to say that the Garth Ennis stuff is in the 60s. I don't remember. I don't speak out of my ass. You can look on Wikipedia and see what it is. Paul Jenkins stuff is really good. Warren Ellis did a handful. I know. He did a handful of issues that are really pretty great. There's one trade that sort of collects a bunch of his sort of random issues that were here and there. You know, I first found Jason Aaron. Jason Aaron, the first thing that I ever read him on was Hellblazer, and it's not the best Hellblazer. It was my first Hellblazer and I don't know if it was actually my first Jason Aaron. Brian Azzarello, there's a really good story in there. I think it's John being in prison near the end. And then from that point on, great. Like up until the end of the episode, end of the series, so up through 300. Andy Diggle did a run of it. That was great. You kind of can't go wrong. But start with the Ennis stuff. You don't really need to read it in order, I don't think. You could. It wouldn't. I would say you should read the arcs in order. Like you should read the like if you go by creator, you'll be okay.
Who finished it out?
Was it? I think it was Diggle. I'm almost sure.
That sounds right.
It was Diggle and or mixed in there was they're downstairs. I can't check it out. Let's wrap up the show. Connor, why don't you start on this part? Go through there, and I'm going to tell you who it is.
Okay. So, contact@ifanboy.com is where you can write us in, like Rob from York and other people did. We just went long on talking about other comics. We will do your emails shortly. Here's the shows coming up, or having already happened. Josh's Talksload with Steve Lieber is on the feed right behind this show, or 2 behind this show. Back there in the feed is his interview with Steve Lieber. Terrific artist, terrific guy. Artist on Jimmy Olsen and Superior Foes of Spider-Man and The Fix and Whiteout and all kinds of great books. You can hear Josh's 1-hour discussion with him there. And then coming soon is the Booksplode show. Both the Talksplode and the Booksplode are unlocked shows by the patrons. Booksplode's the one we talk about a graphic novel, and we're going to do Pluto Volume 1, the classic manga. I don't think Josh and I haven't done manga together in a Booksplode. Paul did a whole series on Akira, but we're going to do Pluto Volume 1. That'll be coming to you this month. And I'll still talk while Josh is still looking.
I'm ready whenever you finish the bits. And
that's
then
all that's coming
full.
Right now, currently.
Okay, I got things mixed up a little, but not too much. Delano was on from 88 to 91. He did basically the first 40 issues with a few in the middle. Then Garth Ennis came on after that second. He did 40 to 80, and then he came back and did 129 to 133. Paul Jenkins did the ones in the middle of there. Warren Ellis came on, did about 12 issues. Then Brian Azzarello. This is where I jump on. Then I don't even see Jason Aaron here, so who knows? I guess it wasn't that long. I think maybe only the other 3 issues. Then Mike Carey was on it for a while, from 175 to 215, quite a while. Those were sort of after the Azzarello. Those were my first serious arc. Denise Minna, who is a I think a Scottish novelist did a few. They weren't great. And then after that, you have Andy Diggle for about 20 issues, and then the last 50 were by Peter Milligan.
Ah, yes.
Peter Milligan, he slaughtered the end of that, and Giuseppe Camuncoli was the artist on all that stuff. The art is spectacular all the way through. I mean, it's so you can't go wrong.
It was like a murderer's row of talent who were on that book.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great stuff. So head over to iFanboy.com. You can find all of our podcasts, and at some point there'll be an iFanboy mini in which Josh talks about Hellblazer. And I remember
on a
shooting that
bench
in the park by your house.
That's true.
Where you talked about the Hellblazer trade. So at some point in the future, you can see him talk about the Hellblazer runs. But not yet. Find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out by liking Facebook.com/iFanboy or following at iFanboy on Twitter and at iFanboy Comics on Instagram, where we also have the Best of the Week in Panels feature. Individually, we are CS Kilpatrick on Instagram, Jay Flanagan on Instagram, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/iFanboy, where you can keep up to date with the old videos. You should subscribe there to get the notifications when they come out. 3 a week. Monday minis. This week's mini was Justice League International Volume 1, the book of the month. And then we had, we're still going through con season in 2007. So we had a show, we did a conversation with Cory Doctorow and Brian Wood at Comic-Con. I think that was about DMZ. And then our first and only trip to Wizard World 2007 was just Gordon and Ron.
I was going to say, I didn't go to that.
No, it's Gordon and Ron. They went to Wizard World in 2007. That was our only time we went to Wizard World. The con shows, 13 years later, not so popular. But the couch discussion shows more popular than the con
We
shows.
knew that at the time.
No, at the time the con shows were popular, but I think people, like, I don't really want to watch an interview from 13 years ago where they're not going to talk about anything anyway. So
Fair
I
enough.
totally understand, and that's fair.
Yeah. It's funny stuff in the middle. I don't know how we found so many people in costumes doing things that were very mundane every
There's
time.
always funny bits in the shows, but
Yeah.
I totally understand why people wouldn't want to watch 13-year-old
100%.
con interviews.
If you like this show, you can rate and review us, leave a star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, or go to that YouTube page, like and subscribe. And then I'll put a little picture. I know, just saying it. I'll put a little picture of myself in the corner on a green screen, and I'll get very excited about every possible moment that I'm playing fucking Minecraft. Do you have any idea about that stuff? Do you know about the Minecraft?
Yeah, I worked at a video game company for
Oh, right.
6 years.
So you knew about it before I did.
Yeah, I still remember Mike Romo just explaining Twitch to you in Boston. We all met for dinner that one night. We were there for PAX.
So, and him explaining Twitch to me at that point, like that was some remedial shit, right?
Well, because it was early. It was like the first year of Twitch.
Oh, okay,
we
good.
We were like, this is happening. This
So
is weird.
it wasn't like it was like 1965, and I'm like, what are these four-wheeled vehicles? No. You're like, these are cars.
No, this was like early. We were like,
Okay.
there's this thing that's happening, and I literally have a photo of him when he was explaining Twitch to you.
I remember that, and to this day, when I see it, I'm like, why does anyone want this? I get it, pretty girls, but there's better ways. Tell your friends about us, share it on social media, talk about all that stuff. Everybody does that. We so appreciate that. Of course, we all appreciate the patrons and everybody who listens every week and says nice things to us. You make the shittiest time in livable human history a lot more bearable. And I mean that. It's so funny. Before you were talking about the barbecue show, and I was just like, oh, fuck, I want to hug my friends. It was such a bummer for a second. I was like, we had no idea. But we still get to do this, and that is not nothing. That is something. Is a constance in the world. Constance is a woman.
Constantine.
Constancy. That's the word I wanted. You're Connor.
Yeah.
I'm Josh.
Yep.
All right. The show is long. We'll see you later. Take care of yourselves. Stay indoors.